I'll say them now, and then as I watch the videos and as I show you some of the pro videos, this will kind of make sense. It'll all kind of connect. First thing, you mentioned this one, but my terminology here, there's quite a loose swing, and I'm going to show you two things within your loose swing. I'm going to use some of the pros. The very simple thing, your racket is not up and still very often before you hit the ball. There's quite a loose arm going on, and then as you hit, there's quite I'll be harsher. Hopefully this is not too harsh.
No, be harsh as you like.
There's what I call a sloppy follow through. Your follow through becomes quite sloppy towards the end. So those are the two things within that first topic I'm going to try show you. So that's the first one. Second one is within your movements, you're not very proactive with pushing off of your last shot. You're quite passive, and you stay in your shot a little bit longer. And I think it has this cumulative effect for what's happening the rest of that rally. And I'll show you some examples of that. So that's the second one. And the third big one is the lack of change of pace, especially in your length. I think your length, it generally gets hit at the same pace so often. And I did a video on squash field, and I refer to it, I call it the 4 zones on the front wall. There's zone 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, very rarely do you kind of explore those 4 zones. So those are the big 3, and I'll just mention the fourth one, and then I'll maybe show you some videos or ask some questions for us next. The fourth one, this I think can be fixed quite quickly. It's whenever you serve, you move across the tee and you jump back about 1 meter every single time. It's really interesting, and I'll show you. And you basically put yourself on the back foot straight away from the word go. And I'm going to show you an example of how the pros do it and see if you can get your version in there.
Right.
So quick little recap. The loose swing is the big first point. Second one is pushing off your last shot. Third one is the change of pace or lack of change of pace and length. And the fourth kind of in the background is the movement from the serve backwards. So when I say those, what comes to mind straight away? Is there anything any thought that was popping in your mind as I said those to start with?
No, I think that's probably quite accurate. I think watching the videos back, I realized that what I have in my mind when I'm on court is not what I see on the videos.
Yeah,
I doing the right thing, but yes.
Yeah, and that's why I love doing video analysis, because when people see it, it's like, wow, okay, it really does make a difference. So I've got about let me just think. I've got about 4 or 5 pro videos lined up, so I might flick my screen with that. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share the screen with your match. And I'll basically stop and I'll kind of go through bits of it that highlight it, and I'll keep trying to come back to the main structure that I saw after watching this a couple of times. Cool. Any questions so far? Does it all make sense?
No, all good.
Wicked. Okay, cool. So I know on Zoom it kind of gets a bit glitchy on your side, so I'll do some more slow-mo stuff as we go. But actually, this first serve, this is a classic example of it. So let me just run it through here. Okay, so as you're serving, let me just move this out the way so I can see it better. Okay. So you'll see you'll serve, and as you hit, like, watch your footwork now. Look at how, like, when you see it, like, it's really back, isn't it? And actually, when I show you the pro video, there's little jockeying and little adjustments, but this is significant. And even just there, okay, I know you move forward now because he's boasting it, but that for me is quite a passive situation. So I'm going to just flick straight to one of the pro ones. I just need to figure out, here it is. So here's a whole bunch of serves, and I'll share my screen in a second. It's it's quite an old clip, but I think it's still massively relevant. Nick and James 2012. And I'll just go through it like they do, like kind of 5 or 6 serves each. So watch James's footwork here. So look at that there. So, and he's doing that split step, and he's proactive, isn't he? He's high up on the tee. He's looking for the volley, and he can go volley that. If he had started where you started, that crosscourt becomes a good crosscourt now from Nick Matthew. But because he'd gone there, and he's now limiting his opponent's options, he's becoming a bit of a brick wall around that middle zone. Whereas I think what I see with you, your common pattern is you step so far back, there's massive passing space for your opponent. They can play like a 5 out of 10 and still put you under pressure. Whereas Nick's crosscourt, yeah, that is not the greatest, but that might be a 6 out of 10. But he's just being put under pressure straight away. So let's watch Nick's version here. So as he serves, pushes up, moves across. There's a very similar pattern that happens, by the way. I might show it to you. And see, he just adjusts a little bit. He doesn't kind of stay crazy high. He just gives himself a little buffer zone. But look at his split step as James is hitting. Look at what part of the court he's in. And think about how that just puts immediate pressure on your opponent. I call it positional pressure. You're not putting pressure on because of your shot. You're putting pressure on because of your position in the court. So your opponent is now forced to play a 6 or 7 out of 10 right away just to get the ball past you. Does this make sense?
No, perfect sense.
Yeah. And look at that.
Just one question is,
yeah, go for it.
Does this mean you have to have a really good serve, or does it put more pressure on getting the serve, a quality serve? Or
yeah, I wouldn't say don't get too, because when I teach this to people, sometimes they get too fixated on getting a perfect serve, and then they end up kind of hitting it out or making mistakes. I would say you want to strive for an above average serve, a 6.5, a 7 out of 10. And if I'm honest, the serve, I think your serve pace could be a bit slower to give you the option and the time, because it's really interesting when you watch it here, like Nick's serve. Okay, it's not too high. Yeah, it's really interesting where it hits the front wall, but look at that connection and that rhythm. It's floating, it's drifting across. It's not too fast, it's not too slow, but it gives them the time to just ease onto the tee. And by the way, if you notice what these players do, they tend to always push to the side of where the ball is. So Nick has pushed about a foot to the left, and that makes quite a difference. So yes, obviously if your serves are 3 out of 10, you might need to step back and just take your medicine. But if you're getting serves consistently at a 6 or 7, I think you can drift across and start to take a higher tee position.
Interesting. So you wouldn't recommend the fast serve in general?
No, I would say at your level, don't get me wrong, the fast serve as I don't know, a 1 in 4, a 1 in 5 option, like doing it every 4 or 5 times, I think could be good. Listen, if you're playing a certain opponent where they're really weak at a fast serve, just bang the fast serve in the whole time. But I'm more of the mindset of going, okay, they're probably going to get it back, but can they get it back with me in a position that's going to put a lot of pressure on them? Even if I don't win the point, I'm staking my claim around that middle of the court. Someone like James has got a more particularly soft serve. You'll notice here, he just gets it in the middle of between the 2 lines. But look how he's casual. He actually walks across and he gives himself, look at that. He's so dominating at that position. Even if Nick plays a pretty good shot, they're like, that's a solid 7 out of 10. Nick had to play that type of shot just to get himself back onto the tee. And anyway, as a side note, look at Nick's tee position there as well. Look at how well he's pushed up.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes.
Can
I ask you? So for me, as a kind of a non-pro, do you still want me to take this same tee position, which is just below the service line?
I would say no, because these guys are obviously super expert at the volley. But can you find your version? And I'm going to flick back to your video now. Can you find your version of this? And let me just kind of close my screen here and come back to this one. So yeah, for me, can you see my mouse on the screen, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, you see obviously your left foot's there. I would say that left foot, even if we just use your left foot for now, can it go forward about another foot, even a half a meter to almost where your knee is there? So you're just in between those 2 lines. Until you get more and more confident, I would say if you can nudge yourself forward another foot to a yard, that's a good starting point. And again, I might find this on a future serve. I know this was a boast, but you don't look super ready there. Look at your racket position. You can see there, it's down there. And straight away, those signs are just saying, right, I'm just waiting to see what my opponent does. I'm being reactive rather than proactive. And what I see with, not even the pros, but with good club players, there's always a purpose to what they're doing. There's always something that going, okay, I'm going to play this shot for this reason, or I'm going to move to this court position. I'm going to get my body in this position for this reason. Sometimes I think the reactive play that I see with maybe players of your standard, that's what happens a lot. And that's hopefully what I'm going to get through to you today with the big 3 points and obviously the 4th one about the serve. All making sense so far?
Perfect.
Cool. Okay, cool. Let's go forward a little bit. Again, this was obviously not the greatest shot. You slammed it in the tin straight away there, I think so. Yeah. But we'll ignore that one because there's more nuance that we're going to get into here. So again, loose swing, pushing off the shot, change of pace on the length. I'm going to point out a few of these to you here now. And some of it I'll just run through quite quickly. Yeah, for me, that's classic there. So look at again, I know it's cut you off.
Yeah.
You're in a tough position there. Okay, look, it's lucky your opponent was standing deep. Look how deep he's standing. But you've hit the same length twice in a row. This is your 3rd shot, I believe. And again, look where it hits that front wall. It hits the front wall in that, top of zone 2. From that position in the court, I'm like going, whoa. That you're asking for a lot of trouble there. If you're playing someone more proactive, he actually volleyed it, even though he moved backwards.
Right.
And look at that. Even though his volley I'll be honest, I'm being harsh on him here. He's like crazy deep in the courts. His volley is a bit of a push, and he's actually still putting pressure on you because of, okay, the quality of shot, but the lack of variation. So let me flick onto a pro video to show you what I'm talking about here. I've got one from Garwad. Where is he? So yeah, I've got two from Garwad. So let me show you this one first. Right, let me get my screen sharing. Here it is. Okay, so I call this breathe out ball. I've got a couple of videos I do here. So this is the backhand. I've got a backhand and a forehand version. So here we go with Garwad. Sorry, here we go. Here we go. He's just, let me kind of get it right. So he's not under crazy pressure, but he's in that semi-awkward position there. He's taken that lunge in, and just look at that. He just throws it up into that top of zone 3. He just basically goes, right, you know what? I'm just going to contain my opponent here. I'm just going to chip him up there, ideally trusting that ball's nice and tight. And then, like, look at that. Oh, obviously the shot quality is exceptional, but it's what he did. It's the mindset of it that's probably more important right now. And then he's in that optimal position. So I want to just show you something technically as well that he does here. So look at his racket position there. Look at how he goes in. It's not a full swing, but it's relatively compact and still. It's quite a short swing. Whereas I see you in these positions, this is where your swing gets a little bit floppy. Almost you're pulling it back at the same time as maybe it should be still. And then it's just causing a little bit of an issue. So I'll just go bit by bit here, and I want to show you the second one, and then I might ask you a couple of questions. And you can see there, like how and if you just watch this follow through as well, it's not a big follow through, but look how deliberate it is. Like he's kept it there. There's no sloppiness in that follow through. He's been really intentional with where that is. So let me show you the second one of Garwad, and I think you might have a question or two after that. So let me I've got to minimize. I've got a whole bunch of windows open now. You can hear me fine at the moment? Yes.
Perfect.
Cool. Right. Okay. Let me just open the next one. Where is it? Not that one. Okay. Here it is. No, I don't actually have the other one open from Garwad at the moment.
Don't worry. I'm gonna just, close my video because I think
that's cool. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So the more there, but I've got some other examples of. Oh no, I do have it. It's just here. Here it is. It's 1, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, I've got it. Okay, so here it is. Okay, perfect. So this is I don't know. It kind of feels like a similar situation. He's buried in that back corner. If you kind of think where I showed you your last video there, and look what he does here. He's just going, you know what? Farag's in a good position. Look at how he goes into that back corner. His swing is minimal. He keeps it relatively still for a second, and watch what he plays here. He just flicks it up into zone 4, and he just goes, this is more of a cross court, and it's going, right, look at that. Look at how he's reversed the pressure immediately. And then actually Farag chooses a bit of a not the greatest shot there. He kind of goes low and pops it there, but it's probably more because of what Garwad did. So let me just show you that again. So as he goes in, just move that. Like a swing there, it's relatively compact. There's a little bit of drift and movement, but it's not sloppy. He knows he's going to defend this. He keeps it quite low, gets himself in this position, and he basically gets under. He doesn't even have a follow through here because he's just using a lot of wrist, and obviously he's exceptional with this. But can you just see the intent at this point to go, I'm going to change my length. I'm going to vary my length pace in order to get me in a better position, in order to go, right, I need to reset the rally, get back on the tee. If he had hit a hard cross court here, or even tried a straight, he needs to play like a 9 out of 10 to stop Farag volleying. But what he does, he goes, okay, there's a lot of real estate at the top of the front wall. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to play, again, he probably plays about an 8 out of 10 here quality-wise, but it's not pressured. He doesn't have to like put major pressure on himself. So what are you thinking? What are you hearing when I'm showing you this?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's what everyone has kind of coaches and things have been saying to me to hit it higher a bit when I guess I'm under a pressured situation. It's very difficult to hit that low hard across. And
yes.
As you say, he can cut that off. So yeah, I guess it's giving myself time to get back to the tee.
That's going to be part of the next bit I'll keep talking about. So I think it's all of these things combined with that maybe slightly loose swing. It's actually really hard to control the ball to become slow. So even though here, I know you're under pressure, But look what happens to your swing. Look at that. There's a lot. There's, you know, it's at the back part of the swing. There's a lot of moving parts. So if you wanted to push in a little drop here, if you wanted to defend yourself, I think those shots are not even available at this moment. You know, if you could go in there and be a little bit more neutral, a little bit more still in the back part of your swing, and especially here, you've done a diagonal, you're under pressure. I don't think that swing should be coming up above your shoulder. I don't think it should be like, you know, there. That's quite like a high point for under pressure. I would say there you keep it low, and then obviously what you have to commit to, you see you hit it below the line again. And look, it's okay. You get it wider, you get it past him. But equally so, I think there would have been an easier option to get out of this position.
I see. So are you saying is it partly because my racket preparation is late, or do you think my racket almost, if I'm under pressure, I can't do the full prep? Is that also part of the fact?
So I think you need, I'll address the second part. There's obviously going to be certain times when you're under pressure, you're in the scramble mode, and you know what, your swing is going to be, okay, I'm a bit desperate, I've just got to go for it. But I think let's go back a step. When the pressure is not at its full maximum, we need to get you to find, in my opinion, like a much more neutral swing. And I've got a couple of videos from that I'll show you in a second of a few players doing this. There's one of Marwan Shabagi in the back. You know, it's almost like below shoulder height, below hip height. There's not much going on. There's no big trigger movements. There's no big like lift at the last second. And all there is almost just like, right, I'm going to keep this low, and I'm just going to get my racket under the ball and just ease it up somewhere into zone 3 and 4, just with this whole mindset of, I'm going to try and reset this. So I think I think it's training yourself to be stiller in your back part of your swing. Like it can be still here. It can be still up here as well if you want to attack it. But for me, there's not much stillness in your swing. I'll show you a few more examples of you, and then kind of show you someone like Paul Collars is immaculate with his back part of his swing. He keeps it almost frozen the whole time. Even though he's not the technically greatest player, what he does with his swing and how he gives himself a lot of options, that makes a big difference there.
Do you think the neutral swing will give me more options to play from the same swing?
100%.
Whereas what you're saying is with my swing, because it's so kind of wild and long, I can only hit generally a hard shot from the...
Yeah, it almost boxes you in to go, okay, because there's quite a bit, I call it a trigger movement. So your swing is, you know, what you're moving in, it's drifting a little bit. You tend to have quite a big trigger, like there's a big hitch in that swing. And as soon as there's like pace going upwards, you can imagine this, there's going to be very little ability to slow it down enough to control the ball for a drop or a lob. Whereas that you saw like the Garwide example, he went in there, he just kept it there, and he just dropped it down for a second, and then he was just able to, he used his wrist at the end, he just able to push it up and through. So yeah, I would say that the two things within your swing is finding a stillness, finding where it can be stiller for longer, and then from there, making sure you're reducing the hitch, like because again, I think they come hand in hand. When you start to get more comfortable about keeping your swing ready and stiller, that hitch becomes less frantic. When it's not ready and your brain goes, I need a hit, guess what happens? Like, whoa, this needs to move quickly, and then you completely taken away probably 3 or 4 shots straight away from that position. All making sense so far?
Makes sense. Do you think the swing needs to be more compact?
Yes, I would say so. And I'll show you some examples in a second. So let's watch a little bit more of this. So look here, look at that. You've approached the ball. There we go. That's the perfect example of what I'm saying. You've gone in, it's kind of, it's basically low, but not ready. I would say in that position, if you can see me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me just bring my screen down a little bit. So in that position, you're kind of there. I would have even just like something as simple as having the wrist a little bit more cocked and the arm just a little bit closer to your left elbow area here. And that's what I see the good players do. Like yours is, I suppose, in line with your right shoulder. It's this side of your body, right? And there's no engagement in the wrist. So in this position, even like the first point would be engage the wrist. If you can just get that wrist engaged, that's the first starting point. And then especially on the backhand, it needs to come across your body. It needs to come across your obviously your torso and your stomach area a little bit. And if you were there, I think straight away, you've got so many more options, right? And then look what happens here. Look at that from that position. Look how quickly it rises. So like you've hitched it.
Yes.
And then like that's kind of like a, it's a cross score. It looked like you might have even tried to even semi drop it or something at some point. Let me just kind of go back to this. Yeah, because you didn't even like fully swing on that as well. Quite interesting. So yeah, and then you can just see it lands in this no man's land, like, you know, you just there, you know, and again, there's actually a lot just in this little clip. So it actually kind of covers all three of our main points. So the first point was the loose-ish swing, right? Within that, look at your follow through. Quite an interesting follow through, isn't it? It's a little bit, I know with a cross court, you might have to compromise your follow through, but generally what I see from the follow through with players, the racket head tends to lift up above the wrist when it finishes. When that racket head is dropped below the wrist, it's a little bit sloppy. There's not going to be much control there. So that's the swing one. Let's look at you pushing off your shot. So let's have a look at this. So look at that right foot. That right foot has stayed on the ground for way too long. So if you could have from there, like for now, like at that moment, I would hope your right foot's coming off that shot at that moment. So the ball's obviously hit the front wall. You still need to commit to your shot, right? But look how long you're in that position. And you actually come off, and you're quite quick, by the way. I noticed like when you're under pressure, you can run and scramble. But why not be quicker coming off of your shot to allow you to settle on the tee to be able to then apply pressure there? That for me is the big second point from today, is that pushing off the shot. And then obviously the third thing I've said is the change of pace for the length. So I think within this one shot, I know I'm being super harsh here, so hopefully you're still with me. I think all three things get shown in the shot, the kind of the swing, the lack of pushing off, and the lack of change the length. But if I'm honest, Eugene, I think point 1 and 3 are closely linked. Point 1, the kind of the loose swing. Point 3, the lack of variation in your length. I think those two are really closely tied together. It's very hard to have variation in your length when your swing is jumping up and down. Would you agree? Do you on board with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Right. So let's watch a little bit more, and I'm going to show you some other little videos. Yeah, interesting here. Again, I know this again. You go out of video, but look, like watch what your racket does right at the end. Look at this. Like, look how big that's a. I know you might need a swing, but that's quite a big exaggerated movement for under pressure. If your racket was ready, you might have been able to get out of that. So look, you did well to get that cross court. And interesting, look at this now. So look at where you are when he's hitting the shot. So he's, maybe, yeah. So let me just find that ball. So he would have hit the shot about there. So your tee position, that's not really applying much pressure, is it? You've actually done well to get him out and get him around you. If you were able to be a bit more proactive with your movement off the shot, I think you're another meter forward and even a meter to the left. And then, you know what? Like, okay, he gives you a gift there, but you could have even been in a better position there. And that's really interesting. Look at your body position here. It's quite passive, isn't it? Let me just kind of show you what I mean there. Yeah, for me there, if I had that amount of time, I would be getting right round to the side of that ball. I would be shifting my body round to the side. I'd still play the same shot. So you played the right shot, but look at what you had to do there. Look at how pushy that becomes. You just almost had to like hope it up there, didn't you? Because the ball was a little bit in front of you rather than getting in this optimal position.
So I need to be, in that case, with more time, more side on, and that will give me more consistency and options on the swing, I guess. Is that and more prep?
So it just glitching for a second. Can you just repeat that?
I need to be more side on in that situation with more time, and that would give me more consistency and options in the swing. Is that?
Yes. It did glitch, but I think I got what you said. Yeah, for me there, that where that ball is in relation to your body, all you're using in this moment is just your arm, isn't it? Like, look at that. It's just all an arm. It's all a little bit of a push. Whereas if you could have shifted your hips around to the side, got in a more optimal side-on position with that wrist engaged, I think that firstly, the shot quality would have been way better. It would have improved. You would have got the ball in there with more conviction. But secondly, what is really valuable is you would have been able to have a few more options. Your opponent might not have been able to even kind of cover that. They might have had to go, wow, I can hit a drive or a drop from there at the same time. So yeah, I think if you can get into that optimal body position, that does a huge difference. So based on that, let me show you what I want to show you here now. I use this video quite a lot because there's so much good going on in this one. Okay, so we've got where is it? It's Paul Cole and Asal, right? Can you see this video now?
It's coming yet.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Give me a second. I'm just going to take my top off. I'm getting all animated and quite warm. Yeah, give me 1 sec. Okay, that's fine. I'll be finished just. Okay, right. Are you there?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by like optimal body positions in certain points here. And this is, again, look at Cole there. Look at how he's worked. And I know it's a slightly different position, but he's gone in, his footwork's nice and neat and detailed. He's got into this real optimal position. So there he's compact, he's side on, his whole body position is kind of saying, right, you know what? I can do quite a bit from here. He just plays a basic straight length, but he's in this optimal position. And let's just have a look at his swing here now, because the way he moves into this. So this goes in. So watch this. As he moves, look at his racket. So look where he puts it. He's got his wrist engaged and he's got his arms slightly across his body. You can see that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And look at this now. Watch the top of his racket as he's moving. Look at this. How still is that, eh? Can you see that?
See, yes.
And for me, like, again, can we get you to find your version of this? His lower half is engaged, his feet are moving, but his upper half, especially his racket and his racket arm, are so still. And for me, that's one of the biggest things if you could take away from today. Can you start to move to your shots, your whatever, even just start with the basics, like doesn't need to be when you're under pressure, but can you move to your shots with more stillness? So let's watch here. Let's look at his swing now. Like, how much of a hitch does he have? Tiny. Can you see that there? Look at that. How small is that hitch? He just goes from there. He just goes just slightly above his head. And everyone does that. All the pros do that. There's always a little bit of a hitch and a trigger. You need it. But if he was starting with his racket down by his hips and he was to get his racket up above his head, think about how big that hitch is. And yeah, for me, that's going to be really important. And then the next bit, look at his follow through here. Look at how he's so deliberate. He hits that ball clean, nice firm wrist when he's hitting it. And then look at that. He's really pushed his follow through to like where he wants the ball to go. He hasn't been sloppy with it. He's been really detailed in the back part of a swing, and he's been really detailed with his follow through. So for that one first big point I've said to you about the loose swing, I think those are your two big takeaways within that big headline. The stillness here, and then the deliberateness of the follow through. So
I noticed that his racket is up from the tee from even before. So his racket is up.
Yeah. So what I say, like, I think this is the optimal position I like to get people in. So when he's on the tee, it's pretty much, I like a horizontal position. So his arms relatively relaxed, but his racket is pointing horizontal. It's parallel to the ground, isn't it? Yes. And what I see a lot of players, like actually some players have it even further down. What I say, it's kind of a bit counterintuitive here. I don't want anyone on the tee having their racket up here, because I think you're a little bit stuck at that point. I think for me that, like, if your racket's facing 45 degrees upwards when you're waiting on the tee, I think you get a little bit locked in. I see most players have the racket horizontal, and as soon as they move, watch this, I go quite detailed here. As he split steps, look at that. You see his racket appear above his left shoulder, you know, like that trigger movement. So he's gone from horizontal. Let me just go back a sec. He's gone from horizontal there, and within a split second, he's gone to about 45 degrees there. Can you see that? He's just gone poof. And what I even get players to do, I get them to do a bit of ghosting with this. And all I get them to do is, as they move their feet, they flick their wrist up. As you split step, the wrist goes. Split step, wrist goes. And that's quite a cool little thing just to practice on you by yourself. Like it's this cool association with your feet and your wrist. And like that would be one cool practice you could do, even if it's just light ghosting. It doesn't need to be physical, but as you split, you just go poof, and on the forehand, or you go poof on the backhand. Obviously on the backhand, as you do your wrist, you do need to bring it across your body. So there's like almost a second movement on the backhand, like Paul did. On the forehand, it's quite easy just to go poof and just lift it almost straight, and then you've got your forehand options. Is that making sense, your side?
The second thing I wanted to ask was the follow through. So you were saying my racket is below my wrist, and the follow through where it should be, the racket should be up above the wrist. Is that right? And more.
Yeah. So there's going to be different examples. Like that was one maybe extreme example where you kind of cut across and you finish down below your wrist there. Whereas what I see most players do is they try and I call it popping. They try and pop the racket head back above the wrist when they finish. They go there and they just pop it. And they just, even if it's a little one, even if it's just short, sometimes when they really want to kind of lift it or get it through to the back, it's a pop, but they also lift their whole arm a little bit as well. So let me see if I can find some more examples of that here. So again, look at Asal there. He's left the tee. So both players do this really well. He's left the tee. That swings a little bit still here. So Asal there, he's punching it. But look at that. Even with a punch, look at his follow through there. You know, he's trying to make sure that follow through is going towards that target. He hasn't dropped the racket too like below his wrist. He's punched it through. So let's look at Cole again, and I'll just go through, like, look at Cole's racket position there. How immaculate is that? It's like super immaculate, isn't it? He's up so early. He's under pressure here. Look what he does. He just pops it up there. He doesn't try to do too much. He just goes, right, I'm just going to pop it into zone 3 above that line. It doesn't actually have the ability to open in that follow through phase, pops it onto that middle line, and he's then reset. So one other point I want to make here, let's look at his footwork. So as he lunges, he's obviously got a big lunge. He drags his back foot. Look at how quickly he pops out of this. Look at how quickly his left foot comes off the floor. So watch this. Boom. Like he's literally trying to pull that left foot off. He skips out of his shot, and then he walks to the tee. These players do this so well. So your second points that of these things was the ability to push off your shot better. These players do it so well. Let's watch Asal here, just with this. Look at Asal's follow through here. That's kind of, it's almost over deliberate, but that's an example of that racket head going above the wrist. And look how much he wants to get out of his shot. Look at how he's pulled his right foot off of his shot, and he's now skipping out of it to get back into that tee position. Is this all connecting at the moment?
I think I've heard before that the most aggressive part of the movement back is the first step. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you got
That's a very, very good thing. It's the first step, and it's also linked to your body weight transfer. So if you have the ability off the back wall, if you're in this 2-footed base like Asal is, it's actually quite easy to transfer your body weight, because you're in a base, you're in a bit of a lunge / squat position, and you can actually move through it. When you don't have a 2-footed base, like I think I'll show you Paul Cole's one in a moment here. Yeah, this is a good one here. Look at this. So he's in a lunge, so he can only really use his left foot. He uses his right foot to drag in. But look at how aggressive he is there. Look, and even if I just go really mechanical here, he's got his knee bent. So if you look at the angle of his left knee, like it's 90 degrees, he's loaded. Look how loaded he is. And from this position, all that latent energy in the leg, like look at how he pushes. Look at that. Boom. Like he's really driving that. And you see these guys with their weights on their shoulders doing these squat jumps. That's why they do it. They want to get off the shot quickly, get around to the tee, and get in that optimal position. So yeah, that's going to be also a big one for you there as well. And look, Asal's got a 2-footed base there. And even though this is quite interesting, look at how Asal chops it in short, does a kill, but look at his follow through. He's still popping it up to make sure there's this, like, it keeps it neat, it keeps it straighter, it keeps it tidy. There's no, like, I call it fishtailing. Like when your follow through becomes sloppy at the end, the racket's fishtailing on the way into the ball. And as soon as the racket's fishtailing, it's like, wow, what angle is it going to hit the ball at? You just don't know, do you? But if that follow through is going to be nice and deliberate, it tends to square up nicely right before you hit that ball to take it on through. Any questions so far on this?
I noticed when you were saying they're popping it up, their follow through is actually more abbreviated. Is that something that obviously my follow through is it's almost too big? Do you think?
Yeah, especially like I find it quite interesting on the forehand in particular. So many people just literally let it go, whereas actually I see the pros, there's quite a limit on their follow through on their forehand, especially they really are like almost stopping it and putting it and making sure the ball's directed into the right position. So yeah, I think that's a great point you make there. So let me just show you this last one on here, and then I want to come back to your video for a sec. So look at Paul there under huge pressure. Watch what he does. Firstly, he just tries to buy himself a bit of time, right? He just tries to get a little bit of height on the ball. And from here, if he's doing a full lunge, full sprint, Asal's pushing up hard, you would say Asal's going to be really on top of this rally. But watch what Paul does. Here's the magic. He pops it up. Look at his footwork here. Look at this. Like, how quick is he back there? He is like just gone, I need to get out of this quickly. So rather than being like so focused on getting the shot, which you obviously need to, right now, he is massively focused on getting off the shot. He's like, right, I need to just get my feet moving. And even though Sal's in a great position, Cole's back on the tee, isn't he? So for me, yeah, if you can put more investment, again, you don't want to be like crazy aggressive all the time, because if you're like playing like a lob and you're too aggressive when you move off the shot, you're going to be on the tee for too long and you're going to get stuck. So it's a balance to find. Like, you want to get off your shot, but it needs to be attached and tethered to the pace of your previous shot. So for example, if you're hitting quite a hard shot, you want to move relatively quick with that off. If you're lifting that ball, you still want to be moving off the shot, but it's going to be at a lower cadence and a lower pace. So I think it's quite important to get that balance right as well.
Great. I think part of it is I'm admiring my shot and trying to work out how good it is. But
exactly, I use that so often in my coaching, like admiration. Like, dude, like we're not an admiration society here. And even here, this is interesting. Look, you got him under pressure. Look at your body language. That doesn't look too positive, does it? Look at where your racket's pointing. It's pointing straight at the floor, isn't it? Whereas there, if you had your racket horizontal, and look how this catches you by surprise. It's like, whoa, it's like, there you should be putting crazy pressure on him. And actually he gets this ball back, because watch what you do. Look at your angle of your shot, front wall, and watch what happens here. The side wall, death of side wall. It's the thing I coach so often. When people are in position, they end up clipping the side wall. And look at that. He's able to just scramble that out and get back in position. But also similarly, look at you admiring that. You're super admiring, aren't you? Your racket's down. You should be about a foot to the right of the tee at this point. You should be seriously cutting off anything he can do. And that should, even though it's kind of okay, that should be a way earlier volley. Whereas your volley, it's pushed you back in the court. So yeah, I think this idea of being more proactive there, and actually look what it does. It forces you to play a bit of a loose shot. He gets back in the rally, and I think he actually wins it from this position, or maybe a shot or two later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Let me just play this through, because there's probably a few little things there. Yeah, that was a tricky one as well. Came at your body. I think you hit it out. Yeah. So yeah, you can kind of see there's a similar pattern starting to develop, isn't there?
Yeah, no, there's a lot there. Yes.
But that's why I wanted to keep it kind of, like the simple headlines. Eugene, just a quick note. I've actually got another lesson straight up at 9 a.m. So I do probably need to start to close it up now. There was probably one more video I wanted to show you, but again, it was more just about the variation of length, but hopefully you can trust me that, you want to be using those 4 zones up and down that line. So what I always like to do, I just like to come back to the student and just check for some learning. What have you taken away from today? What main things are popping in your mind that you want to go and take and work on with yourself, from today's session?
Yeah, it's definitely working on this swing aspect. What you said was the getting into a stillness position, less of a hitch.
Yes, correct.
Following through more abbreviated and to the contact point with a racket above. So I think that racket prep is the main thing for me. Yeah. And also less admiring of the shot and getting back to the tee. Yeah, correct. And also the serve as well, as you mentioned, the serve, moving into a more forward position on the serve and putting pressure. I can see that. Yeah. Exactly. And I think obviously you can watch the recording and like obviously see the videos that I showed you as little examples of how to do it. And there's just one point that you didn't mention that I just mentioned, but I think it's tethered to that swing, which is the idea of the variation of your length. I think if you can start to use zone 3 and 4 a little bit more, start to ease that ball up there as soon as you're under pressure, I think that also is going to help you a hell of a lot. Just go right, choosing the right shot at the right time, not getting yourself in these difficult trouble situations, and looking to continually reset the rally when your opponent's slightly getting on top of you. That's what I think those top guys do so well. But I think it's also really tethered to the stillness in the swing and that ability to be nice and still and more compact, and even more compact in the follow through. I think it allows you to get that ball up into those areas a little bit more. This was fantastic, Jesse, and thanks very much. And, absolute pleasure. Do you mind if I put this video, if you're sending me the recording, I'll put it on my channel as well. Please so do. I don't know if that's
others can learn from it 100%, like no problem whatsoever. Yeah, more than merrier with that. And yeah, listen, I do a whole bunch of lessons obviously regularly with this. If you like this and you want to do more than happy for you to kind of book in and kind of think about doing some future ones. But I think there's a lot of good work you can go and work on there. And then if it's something like, in a few months time, you say, hey, listen, can you just check at what we did and have I improved on it or what needs work? It's always quite nice to keep a little bit of momentum going so you can really get into the details of it.
I'll book another one in with you in a month or so, I think, and
Amazing.
I'll get some other guys from my club also.
Perfect. Yeah. And what I am doing, just a quick side note, I'm going to start to do some more like kind of live masterclass things. So I'll invite like a bunch of squash players on. I'll pick a theme and I'll do like some video analysis, and I'll also have like a Q&A with the group as well. Would you be interested in something like that?
Absolutely. Is that face to face, you mean, or?
No, it'll probably be online, but I might do some kind of going to some clubs and stuff. But yeah, there's been a few, I've done it with quite a few of the American junior camps and that stuff where I've kind of had a 45-minute masterclass on one theme, and there's been like 15, 20 people join in from all over around, and they can see it all online. So, at least it's kind of accessible to everyone at that point.
Yeah, keep me posted. That sounds
Amazing.
interesting.
Perfect. Eugene, listen, thanks for reaching out. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, good luck implementing those things.
Thank you, Jesse. Have a nice day. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye. Man. Bye.